My ancestors have been here forever. During the summer times, they would go higher up towards Wild Rose and get pine nuts and pick different foods up that way and do the hunting and stuff. And then they would travel back down during the cooler months, or they would head towards Beatty. It just depends on, they would head towards Beatty for antelope and stuff like that, green water to hunt rabbit. But during the hottest part of the time, they would really never be down in the valley floor. It was always the heat with no electricity and no, so they would go where springs were and travel to the springs and stuff. The food, there's plenty of food in their hunting. They managed to accumulate exactly what they needed. There's springs everywhere. In my family, they knew where it all was.
New interests appear, right? We're living through this moment of this, this transition from, a fossil fuel dependent economy to renewables. And as a result, we've seen a couple of threats looming on the horizon for some time. Large scale industrial solar being one, and another one being new forms of extraction, looking for some of these rare earth minerals that, of course, are essential to us making this transition possible.
There's fracking that could happen, so extraction of these minerals, lithium, and there's naturally lithium occurs. It's in our mineral spring water, but in this industry, a lot of money can be made. A lot of money. People, I've heard want to call this area around the Salton Sea Lithium Valley, and that just sounds so freaking crazy to me. This is my home.
This land was given to us at the very beginning. Before the Europeans came, it was given to us. The Quechan and Cahuilla have stories and songs that tell the story. I'm a singer, so everything that I do or say comes from songs. My knowledge of history comes from song. The reason why I know is because I know every word that I'm saying when I sing. It's not phonetics. So that's how I know.
I took Preston over there. I went a couple times before Preston has gone actually to the Oral Cruise or American Girl mines, which are close to each other. And we went back there, and I took him back there, and we went back there and looked at the areas of Oral Cruise and also American Girl, and both of them are just devastating.
I don't like the destructions that I see. Simply to get gold, to line their pockets, to get money. That's not reason enough for me to say it's okay to go and destroy everything. I don't think so. People saw what had happened, but no one said nothing. When I saw it, well, I was angry because they were created the same way we were. They created people, they created mountains. They're digging for gold everywhere they can. For what? What good is that? Eventually, all you're doing is for every sack full of gold that these people are getting, there's a place somewhere where they destroy the environment. They don't realize that. Somewhere, creatures, animals are dying. They don't know that. Somewhere out there, they could contaminate a lot of water. They don't know that. As long as they have that gold in their hand, they think that's good saving, that's good for their future. There will be no future if you keep doing that with the gold. And among other things that happen with that gold mine is also the lithium problem we're dealing with over here. Lithium's another thing. And I think that they don't care because right now the geothermal out there and plus the San Andreas fault over there that they're digging right near it. If they can go on until they can cause an earthquake.
With the release of the recent report, entitled Characterizing the Geothermal Lithium Resource at the Salton Sea by Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory, the first formal assessment of the much-touted lithium resource there is quantified. There are 3 questions of note. The first is, how much lithium is available? The second is, how long will it last? And the third is, will extraction trigger earthquake swarms on the San Andreas Fault?
pupfish, plants, snails, insects. I think they were saying the other day there's maybe 4 or 5 different pupfish over at Ash Meadows. And we also over here at Salt Creek down here in the valley. Yes, that and protecting the water, protecting the land, the habitat, the vegetation, just, you know, because everything is a resource for us, for everybody.
When we think of culture, it's the land and the water and everything that sustains life, and the life itself, and the tools maybe that were used or that you use in fishing, and all of the things that go along with living there. The total picture of life.
Exactly.
Well, there's a problem, and that problem we've seen at Thacker Pass and other places where mining and extraction had become very lucrative and are subsidized by companies and by the federal government in different ways. And here then we have Ash Meadows, which you described as being lush and beautiful and home to many species, where they're also considering some level of lithium mining.
Rover Metals. They've been trying to come in. It's been about a year we've been fighting them. They were denied. They gave us a project plan, and BLM denied the first one, which is wonderful. They haven't turned another one back in. We've been to Washington, D.C. trying to get a mineral rights because of the fact that if they just make one mistake drilling, it's going, you know, one mistake isn't acceptable because of the fact if they can't cap it, that's a possibility that we're going to lose water here and other places. And then to top it off, if they do drill and succeed, what's going to happen to the habitat? What's going to happen to the vegetation? And
lithium is actually found very commonly in these kind of these basin areas we have in the Mojave Desert. These kind of semi-saturated alkali wetland type places tend to also have this kind of, you know, higher concentrations of lithium.
And sometimes when you travel from Death Valley Junction heading towards Shoshone and down that way, sometimes it'll be dry. Sometimes you'll see the Amargosa River and you'll see it flowing. Sometimes you'll be lucky enough to see that river flowing. There's fish. There's 28 endangered species here. You've got the devil's pupfish, which is only here, no place else, over at Devil's Hole. I think they were saying the other day there's maybe 4 or 5 different pupfish over at Ash Meadows. And we also over here at Salt Creek down here in the valley, the pupfish have tripled the amount that's there.
And so about a year ago, we caught wind of a really problematic proposal proposed by a Canadian mining company who was seeking to conduct exploratory drilling for lithium directly against the northern boundary of Ash Meadows National Wildlife Refuge, which is really the heart of the whole watershed. It's the largest oasis in the Mojave Desert, home to at least 26 species that only live in the refuge. It is this island in the desert, and it's also a place of extreme cultural importance to the tribal communities that have occupied this region since time immemorial. Ash Meadows, we're told, it was a meeting place for the Timbisha Shoshone, the Chemehuevi, Southern Paiute. It was, you know, a place that is still highly regarded for, you know, many things, especially the food, the medicine that it produces. And so we saw this proposal and immediately did everything in our power to ensure that a drilling project of this caliber, which was proposing to drill holes within 1,500 feet of some of the largest springs in the refuge, and presented a really direct threat to groundwater needed not only to sustain the refuge, but really to sustain the communities in this part of the watershed.
The beans and the powder that they used to make out of the honey mesquite and the pine nuts and other plants, they would store as they would travel. That way, until when they would come home, they would have places that they would stop where there were springs at, and they would have, you know, a little spot where they had stored food.
The Timbisha Shoshone provided a letter directly to staff within Secretary Deb Haaland's office, asking them not to permit this. We kind of didn't have anything else at our disposal, but the strength of the Endangered Species Act. You know, we basically took issue with this project, that it proposed a direct threat to the endangered species that occupy the refuge, and especially these northern springs. The worst thing we could let happen is for this just to kind of unfold under the cover of darkness, and for nobody to even know about it. So we raised the alarm.
They bring up the lithium and then they extract the water back down in a brine. And then the brime's like a thick clay. In time, you're not going to be able to keep, putting it down, and that clay hardens it down there, and you're not going to be able to push very much clay in there. They keep putting that brine down there, and how many holes are you going to have to dig to keep putting brine down? You say that it's going to be easy to put it back. It isn't going to be easy to put it back. And you're still not putting everything back in the ground as it is. So, and they say that they're not using very much water. That's not true. They're actually using quite a bit of water. It's like Rhyolite Ridge. They bought up a lot of the water rights out in Fish Lake Valley. Why do you need all the water rights if you're not going to use that much water?
It all fits in with the way we interact with nature and each other. We're a very violent society. We're a very exploitative society. And it goes back to our roots in Imperial Europe. And these sort of fundamental institutions that we brought here from Europe that are fundamentally destructive.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this program to bring you important news. Word has just been received from the Atomic Energy Commission that due to a change in wind direction, the residue from this morning's atomic detonation...
It's rarely talked about and not as well known as other environmental problems, but if stored incorrectly, it could be more dangerous than anything humans have witnessed.
To support the newer people, the indigenous people, to fight and get the media out. Because Yucca Mountain is the dangerous place on this Mother Earth. This is the Western Shoshone land. A treaty of 1863. The United States, the government, haven't been listening to us every time we go to their court.
Ian Zabarte, a Shoshone man who's lived there for generations, had a lot to say.
It used to be one time that you could drink the water out of any of these springs around here. You can't do that anymore. Some of the big pollution is radioactive fallout from nuclear weapons testing. We would walk all the way across the valley to the main gate of the Nevada test site and have our protest there together.
Test site in Mercury, illegally occupied by the federal government, military in violation of the 1863 Treaty of Ruby Valley. Western Shoshone Tribal Chief Johnny Bobb leads the annual march from Peace Camp to the line.
They're welcomed by Johnny Bobb, Chief of the Shoshone National Council.
April 14th, 2017, second day in a row, Nevada test site, Nevada National Security Site, Ritual Line. 7 were arrested, 16 the day before, mostly different arrestees.
We bring our people, our children, around the Nevada test site to walk and run with me. And let these people know, the non-natives, what's going on with the Shoshones.
In 1956, a movie was released starring John Wayne. The movie was called The Conqueror. Most of the film took place at St. George, Utah, which is 137 miles downwind of the United States government's Nevada National Test Site, security site, and received the brunt of nuclear fallout from testing active in this period. It was supposed to be a safe place to film, but years later, half of the crew and cast died of cancer.
The movie was considered a disappointing take on Genghis Khan, which was played by, you guessed it, John Wayne.
I'm here to talk about cancer. Now, I know about cancer. Matter of fact, I lost a lung and a couple of ribs learning about it.
The following years after the movie's completion, many of the cast and crew members passed away.
Mind if I don't beat around the bush? I'm for straight talk with no chance of being misunderstood. The simple fact is that cancer can often be cured if it's detected and treated in time.
Director Dick Powell passed away from cancer 7 years after the movie's 1956 release. Actor Pedro Armendáriz was diagnosed with cancer in the early 60s, and a few years later committed suicide in 1963.
Nevada nuclear test site, where 11 nuclear bombs have been set off a year before. It was quite possible that all the radioactive dust traveled on the wind and settled where the movie was being filmed. One of the extras was Bud Myers. He is a first account witness of being there on the set during that time.
Certain days they had, like the riding past the cameras and things like that. And then they showed a battle scene, you had with a sword. They can kick up a lot of dust. Even two horses, near about 40, 50 of them. It's a big old windstorm coming through after it's answered. I had my father, he was out here, and he was riding a horse too. He died of cancer. I had two brothers died of cancer, and a younger sister died of cancer.
Woke up in prayers, woke up in sweat, woke up in a little bit of tears. That brought one attention to me. Where's my people? Restoring that contaminated soil to make it bad. This is the Western Shoshone land. A treaty of 1863. We go up there and pray. We go up there and make offerings with our food. We go over there wherever the burial grounds are in the mountains and offer tobacco, food, whatever. The Forest Service, BLM, and all the things that's happening on our land, like our mining, water being taken out, fracking, oil well drilling, more roads up in Planet Hills to use that water. They know how to use equipment. What is water to them?
There was a company that came in, it was named Marcos Mining, and they were intending to mine in Chemehuevi Valley near Highway 95 and at the bottom of the wash along Highway 95 on the western side of the highway. They were planning to put the world's largest open pit gold mine. And they were also planning to use cyanide leaching for extracting gold. And Chemehuevi Indian tribe, and I was representative of the tribe, I argued before the powers that be that it's always been told to us, the oral history, traditional new history, that underneath Chemehuevi Valley is a large underground lake. And we know it's there because we see the water that comes out at the spring at West Well at Cahuilla. And that's leading into the Colorado River. So water is still traveling beneath the ground and still interacting. And people never realized that high-level nuclear waste would be able to travel in the water, but I understand that a year after the federal government stopped doing nuclear testing, underground testing, that they had discovered that radioactive nuclides had traveled a mile in the water from where the last blast took place. So to me, that was evident that these things are going to migrate in the water. And also about contaminants migrating in the water at Beatty, Nevada. The same company that was proposing to do the low-level radioactive waste dump here at Ford Valley had an ongoing operation at Beatty, which was leaking. And that aquifer was leaking contaminants into the stream that led into the town of Beatty, thus contaminating their water. So it's already been proven that, all these things can travel and migrate in the water. So you can put two and two together, and think how long would that had taken to get into the aquifer and get into Lake Matthews in Southern California.
When I first heard about it, it scared me because I thought about, our water, the water that, we use pretty much for everything. It was, really peaceful out there, really, really peaceful. It was quiet, but now it's just all, slowly getting torn up. The lithium workers are out there and they're digging the water pipes to place those in there. And, my son and I, we've been out there, we've been watching them as they, slowly destructing the place.
Thacker Pass or Pahimaha, northern Nevada, is a place where Paiute people were massacred and where people lived and hunted and gathered their foods and their medicines and traveled through for thousands of years. This place is under threat right now. The mining company Lithium Nevada is building a giant open pit lithium mine here.
The approval was given 4 days before Trump got out of office in a 9-month rush NEPA that went through during COVID.
They never did come down and consult with us about what was going on up here.
To produce 1 ton of lithium, you need 500,000 gallons of water. We're the driest region in the nation, and they're here trying to steal and take away and pollute and destroy our waterways.
We don't want our water to be contaminated.
So this teepee has been set up in the way of this water pipeline.
We're asking people of prayer to come and stand with us, be strong with us.
We need people to come out here and help us. That's why we're reaching out to other people.
I want to say something a little bit about Oksam. We are descendants of him. There was a massacre here, 2 massacres here in 1865, and Oksam escaped this massacre riding on his horse to the north towards a place called Disaster Peak. He survived that massacre and went on to tell his story about how his people were killed on their land here. We stand here and in prayer to protect this place, ancestral burial ground.
Why is it that the federal government can come in and force a project over local communities, over the objections of local communities? That doesn't seem very democratic to me.
How do we feel about it?
Yeah.
Well, we don't want it. We don't like it. My whole family is against it.
Climate change is real, and we absolutely have to cut carbon emissions. And a lot of people that, believe in what I call so-called green energy are really concerned, and their hearts are really in the right place. But what's never questioned is this whole way of life, this whole consumptive way of life that's hugely energy intensive. We never ask, like, do we need to slow down consumption? Do we need to learn to live with less? We just look to new technologies to try and keep this party going on a little bit longer.
When our ancestors were massacred out there, their bodies were just left out there, because back then, way back, I don't think, they put up funerals and dug graves and, put the bodies in there. I always tell my aunties that, the ground, the weather and everything, the bones just eventually seep into the ground, or whatever was left out there, by the rains, the corrosions, or, whatever. And maybe they didn't look in the right places, and, it would be good to have the land surveyed up there properly, because I'm sure that, that they will be able to find something out there, because it's a big massacre site out there.
The U.S. moved through as the cavalry came through, and settlers and gold rushers came into California and Oregon. They passed through this area, and they flooded into California. And they took over California, and they destroyed the homelands and the foods, and took the lands of the Pitt River Indians, and they started pushing them east, colliding here with the Paiute Shoshone. And skirmishes and fights over food and land as it was all taken in California. And there could have been, longer, older rivalries. But there was a massacre here of the Paiute people, right here in this valley, and particularly what you see is the marker, which they call Sentinel Rock. This is a sacred area, and this is where they could see all of the valley below, and they held ceremonies here and gathered food. So while the village was here, and hunters were out hunting on the other side of the valley, they came in and the Pitt River people came in and massacred the people of this valley, the women and children, and they cut them open and spread their intestines throughout the sagebrush. And you can see it's kind of it's the shape of a moon. It's kind of a crescent here where it goes through the pass. And so this was called Stinking Moon because of the smell in the valley from the massacre. And so it's called Pahimaha. And it's had that name. And it had that name when then in 1864 or 65, the U.S. cavalry came in. And on the other side of Sentinel Rock here, down in the valley across there's a river in the valley, the cavalry set up and came in and again massacred people, 30 to 60, 70, they're not sure. So basically there's 2 massacres that have been on this site. 2 massacres of the Paiute Shoshone people. During the lawsuit, the BLM ignored that. They hid the paperwork. They said they were making it up, that this wasn't sacred land in the lawsuit. And in the lawsuit it was uncovered that they had their own internal documentation that they knew. They knew that this was a massacre site. They knew that this was sacred ground.
There's a lot of well-known stories, legends, myths, among indigenous people in the Western Hemisphere about the destroyers, people like us in our civilization who come to destroy. And I've taken that to heart.
This is the hottest place on earth, Death Valley, California, homeland to the ancient Timbisha Shoshone people.
We're really running up against the force of the 1872 Mining Act, right? I mean, it is, mining remains, well, I guess until very recently, the highest and best use of these public lands. And so generally speaking, it is, especially when it comes to engaging with mining proposals that are in the exploration phase, which this one was, right? They hadn't conducted anything but surface sampling to this point. They're trying to take that next step in actually doing the exploration, and that's meant to prove that there is a marketable deposit. In this case, they were looking for lithium, but that is, it almost never stops there, right? Assuming that exploration will occur and they would find that mineral, that's the first step towards the creation of what could potentially be a large-scale open pit mine adjacent to one of the most significant biodiversity hotspots left in North America. When Yucca Mountain was proposed, part of the pushback raised was we need to do a lot of scientific study to ensure that this is an appropriate location. We're citing this within a mountain range known to be on several fault lines, tectonically unstable, that presides above or is connected to this vast, carbonate aquifer system that the Amargosa arises from. And so there was a real fear of when you're dealing with a system of that magnitude and that complexity, if there was some kind of catastrophic leak or even a minor leak, how far would those potentially, those contaminants travel along these flow paths into the Amargosa?
And here in Chemehuevi Valley, there was a company that came in. It was named Marcos Mining, and they were intending to mine in Chemehuevi Valley near Highway 95 and at the bottom of the wash along Highway 95 on the western side of the highway. They were planning to put the world's largest open pit gold mine. And they were also planning to use cyanide leaching for extracting gold. And Chemehuevi Indian tribe, and I was representative of the tribe. I argued before the powers that be that it's always been told to us, the oral history, traditional New history, that underneath Chemehuevi Valley is a large underground lake. And we know it's there because we see the water that comes out at the spring at West Well at Cahuilla. And that's leading into the Colorado River. So water is still traveling beneath the ground and still interacting. And people never realized that high-level nuclear waste would be able to travel in the water, but I understand that a year after the federal government stopped doing nuclear testing, underground testing, that they had discovered that radioactive nuclides had traveled a mile in the water from where the last blast took place. So to me, that was evident that these things are going to migrate in the water. And also about contaminants migrating in the water at Beatty, Nevada, the same company that was proposing to do the low-level radioactive waste dump here at Ford Valley had an ongoing operation at Beatty, which was leaking. And that aquifer was leaking contaminants into the stream that led into the town of Beatty, thus contaminating their water. So it's already been proven that, all these things can travel and migrate in the water. So you can put two and two together and think how long would that had taken to get into the aquifer and get into Lake Matthews in Southern California. After that was the that big explosion that took place in Henderson, Nevada at the ammonium perchlorate manufacturing plant. Massive. And they got it on camera too. And anyway, apparently what happened to that aquifer they were draining all this water into had migrated from point A to the north by northeast to Las Vegas Wash. Las Vegas Wash picks up is the wash that the drainage from the Las Vegas sewage treatment plant flows into. And from there, it flows all the way into the Colorado River and thus created ecological problems, issues with fish. Ammonium perchlorate got into that aquifer and filtered into the river, and it was detected from point A source all the way to the end, to San Diego. Chromium and perchlorate were detected all the way to Phoenix and San Diego, to Tucson also, because of the Central Arizona Project extracting water. So you had MWD and CAP both taking contaminated water to 40 million people.
Really, we need to be out there where they're planning on doing the project and monitoring right along with them. There's so much history, our history out there, that they don't realize. I mean, what if it was their backyard that we were digging in? What if it was their cemetery where their family was laying at that we were digging in? We don't believe in digging up our ancestors, and that's what's happening now. is every time you turn around, ancestors are being dug up. You know, and that's not acceptable. That hurts. And they don't realize that, you know, just because they're out there, but it's like my auntie said, you know, our church is out there. It's not in a building, it's out there.